Fox host Neil Cavuto turned on Donald Trump, and he went after him in the heart of the right-wing lion's den on Fox News. So let's watch.
President Trump is fond of calling out the media on fake news, but is he the one giving them very real ammunition? Like when you claimed your tax plan was the biggest in U.S. history when it wasn't, or that the bill you signed to make it all happen would cost you a fortune when it turns out it is going to help make you a bigger fortune, or that your job approval numbers really aren't that bad relative to other presidents at this stage, when they're actually worse than most presidents at this stage. That can change, but what's weird is this pattern does not. Like the time that you said rumors of Rex Tillerson's departure at the State Department were false until they weren't, or that your former chief of staff, Reince Priebus, wasn't going anywhere until he was, or your economic advisor, Gary Cohn, was doing a great job until he wasn't, when you absolutely loved Steve Bannon until you didn't, swore by Jeff Sessions until you started swearing at Jeff Sessions, had your legal team locked in place until it wasn't, denied reports you were ever thinking about firing Robert Mueller, even as you now threaten getting involved at the Justice Department. Now, none of this makes you evil, but I'm sure you can understand why even your friends say these inconsistencies don't make you look good or do anything to help advance your policies, many of which are very good, or the prospects for peace with North Korea. That is remarkably good. All this stuff you keep blurting out, remarkably bad and remarkably bad timing. It is not that these exaggerations and omissions and misstatements are now and then. More like now and then something else, always something else. Like the time you claimed you signed more bills than any president ever, neglecting to mention the other four presidents, FDR, Truman, Carter, and Clinton, who all signed more. Or brag about the national debt going down by $12 billion after your first month in office, even though it soared by nearly $1 trillion now that you're 15 months in office. But it's not what you are omitting, Mr. President. It is what you keep stating and never correcting. Like when you said there was a serious voter fraud in New Hampshire, and there wasn't. Said the same about repeated claims of voter fraud in Virginia, and there weren't. Or that millions of illegals voted in the last election, but they didn't. Or the time you talked up your massive landslide in the Electoral College, even though 3 out of 4 presidents before you had bigger electoral vote landslides in their elections. Again, none of this makes what you say fake. Just calling out the press for being so a bit of a stretch. You are right to say some of them are out to get you, but oftentimes they're using your own words to bash you. Your base probably might not care, but you should. I guess you've been too busy draining the swamp to ever stop and smell the stink you're creating. That's your doing. That's your stink. Mr. President, that's your swamp.
Damn. That was actually pretty good. I mean, so what he's doing is, it's a little bit, what's the right word for it? Technocratic. Like he's calling him out on falsehoods, but they're not falsehoods, like they're wonky falsehoods. You know what I mean? Like they're the gratuitous lies, the asinine lies, the things that are just, you immediately fact check it and it's just wrong and it's a point of fact. So like the thing about, oh, I signed more bills than any other president, that's just objectively not true, but also nothing hinges on it. You know, like there's nothing that hinges on that. Like, okay, he lied about that, but then what? Nothing hinges on that. So he's calling out the gratuitous lies. He's calling out the asinine lies. Now, you saw maybe 70% of his rant there. There's more to it. And, you know, but in the other part, the part you didn't see, I think the thing that gets under my skin is like he gives him credit for his tax bill. See, that's where you still see what these people are all about. Because this is what, so Neil Cavuto's doing this. He's right about all the stuff you just saw there. But fundamentally, for his core values and for his preferred policy positions, he actually agrees with Trump. So that's the thing that's like, it's just damning with faint praise, because this is what Jeff Flake does. Jeff Flake likes to grandstand and say, he's against Trump and oh my goodness, there's honor and virtue is not in the White House anymore. And like he makes remarks like that, but then you go look at his voting record and he has literally about 90% of the time voted with Trump. So it's not like, I feel like people like this get too much credit because they say, like they point out the most obvious blatant lies of all time. Like, oh, there was voter fraud and there wasn't. So it's good that he's pointing it out and saying you're wrong about that and stop lying about that. But at the same time, if ultimately he's for the exact same policies, like voter ID, for example, like I said, he's for the tax bill, which is a disaster. 83% of the benefits go to the top 1%, raises taxes on everybody making $70,000 a year or less over a 10-year period, obliterates corporate taxes, obliterates the estate tax. So, like, I'm not that impressed when, you agree with him on all of the policy positions, but you just want him to be less gratuitous of a liar. You know what I mean? So, but again, I do want to give credit because there are so many people on the right, so many commentators who have just gone along with the gratuitous lies, where they're like, yeah, I don't care. I'll overlook that because I agree with the policy positions. So I'll even pretend he's right about the things he's clearly wrong about because I agree with, whatever, the bombing 8 different countries and the shitty tax bill and the destroying Obamacare with executive orders. So, I mean, I guess these guys are a tiny step better than the people who lie right along with Trump, but I'm still not that impressed because his fundamental value system is right along with what Trump's policies are. So that's why I don't think it makes sense to really fawn over shit like this, because it's almost like the bar is now so low, so low, that just the bare minimum of intellectual honesty is like revolutionary on the right. And then this guy, he on his next show, Cavuto read a bunch of tweets and Facebook messages that he got, and like 80% of them, 90% of them are Trump people shitting on Cavuto. But what's fascinating about it is like they're not even saying, hey, Neil, you're factually wrong and he's right. It's almost like they're acknowledging that Trump is full of shit, but then they go after Cavuto anyway. It's like, how dare you call out the president? It's one of those things. Like, one of them was like, what if we went through everything you said with a fine-tooth comb and try to find all the little things you said? It wouldn't be as many lies as Trump. Trump lies as a habit. He's a pathological liar. He just opens his mouth. Whatever the fuck is coming out is likely a lie. It's the default position for Donald Trump. So I hate Neil Cavuto, but you're not going to find as many asinine lies from Neil Cavuto as you will from Donald Trump. But the thing that you will find is on the policy positions. Let me put it this way. If Neil Cavuto was a senator, his voting record would be at least 90% with Donald Trump. So, my whole thing is you would think that if you look at a guy like Trump and you see what he's actually doing policy-wise, wouldn't you think like, okay, he's obviously pretty unintelligent in other respects with the nonsensical lies, so maybe we should be even more critical of his voting record. Maybe when they pretend like, oh, I'm going to get rid of the national debt or lower the deficit, as they pass a tax bill that adds $1 trillion to the deficit, maybe that's a moment to pause and reflect, Neil, and to go, shit, you know what, man? I don't know. Maybe the fact that he's so shitty in other respects means he's also shitty with his policies. And that should give me some time to reflect and go, maybe he's wrong about all that other shit too. Maybe he's wrong about endless war. Maybe he's wrong about torture. Maybe he's wrong on taxes in the economy. So, the bar's just so low. That's my point. The bar's so low. And with all these establishment Republicans, and Neil Cavuto is establishment-minded, what they want is somebody doing virtually all the same policies as Trump, but they're polite. They're polite, and maybe they don't tell as many preposterous lies. Like, oh my God, there's voter fraud, there's illegals voting, and, all the other goofy shit. I signed more bills than any other president, when that's not even close to true. Trump, the one that I thought was the most amazing is Trump he took credit for, so there's a wall, I think in California, in certain parts of the southern border. And under the previous administration, they okayed repairs to that wall. Trump tweeted out pictures of them repairing that wall and acted like it is his border wall and it's a new border wall. And then when people corrected him on it, he's like, no, you're wrong. What? Like, it's just, the lies are so over the top. They're just so over the top. But that's the thing, is how brazen they are. That gets me. But what a guy like Neil Cavuto wants is somebody who has the temperament of Mitt Romney, doing all the same policies as Trump. So he wants Mitt Romney. That's his ideal. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter how polite Trump is or how much he drops the silly lies. At the end of the day, what he's doing to the country is still horrendous. And I don't think Neil Cavuto recognizes that, acknowledges that, or agrees with that. And that's the fundamental problem.